Miles.
Hello. See if I can angle it. We good? Hi.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyone chat there? Post your thoughts. Are you there? There's one person watching.
There's one person watching.
Now there's 0 people watching. All
Goodbye.
Right. That's okay. All right. But this is going to be recorded, so anyone can watch it at any time.
Right.
Which is cool. I did that with a few of my other videos. So, hello, future people who are not watching this live. We are the vanguard of the Grand Rapids HEMA Society, heading down to the Arnold Fencing Classic HEMA tournaments in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
Rock on. What did I say? I already forgot. It's been a long day at work. I am ready to take out my aggression at some saber fighting. Saber fighting, that's what I should be talking about. Ray and I are competing in the military saber tournament, which is awesome. We don't have too many saber fighters in Grand Rapids.
No, not really.
I taught that class on Civil War saber, but other than that, you and me and kinda Rob and kinda Natalie are the only ones who really show too much interest in it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it starts.
Mm-hmm. Start small.
Yeah. I mean, our group is still, overall small anyways.
I think active member-wise, I don't think it's that small. Someone was doing a poll on it a while ago, like
Oh, yeah.
the average number of members in clubs across the nation. I put us down as 13 because I counted all the people who either are active or would be active if their, leg
Right.
wasn't. I have everything closed. Okay, cool. We're back.
Is the lighting working?
Yeah, the lighting's fine because honestly we've got the headlights coming from the other side,
Yeah.
hitting us right in our eyes, so it's good enough.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, yeah, and we have the little live button up in the corner, so I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right, so what are your thoughts? First tournament for either of us, really.
Yeah.
First major tournament for sure. What are we expecting? What are you expecting?
Well, I have watched a couple of videos of some of the tournaments. Like I saw Cam fight longsword and rapier, so I saw how the setup was. So I kind of have an idea of what it's literally going to look like. But as far as the actual being in a tournament and fighting people that I don't know and basically gonna give it basically my all, I think it's going to be very adrenaline running.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I need that pump.
Yeah, I know. Which, we never, as a good martial artist, you never, don't hold back at all. There's always control. But, in a tournament, you're just going at it. You really don't have to worry about the other person's safety as much.
It's funny that you brought that up. The fighters you don't know and the control. Because in preparation for this tournament, I wanted some additional tournament experience, more or less. And there's not much around Grand Rapids. So I joined the SCA, which is a hot topic among HEMA-ists, I know. And I'm going to keep the story nice and short. All the people I fought, I was fighting them in their cut and thrust, which is the similar version to HEMA. And I hit him with the strength that I normally would hit someone with. But he came up to me afterwards like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that that hit was a little hard.
Yeah.
I did the legitimate thing.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. The SCA, they are way more cautious than we are, which in a way can be good. But I was just recently watching a rapier tournament on YouTube, and I watched half an hour of a rapier tournament, and I probably didn't see one full lunge. I probably saw almost entirely just jabbing, because they're not trying to go full force at all.
Well, it's kind of cool. I realized, how HEMA, the standard weapon is longsword?
Yeah.
In the SCA, the standard weapon is rapier.
It is?
Yeah. So you have to, they actually have a combat world, the most popular one that's called rapier. And it's just pokes. There's no percussive hits, there's no whacks.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have to be, usually, I kind of got around it, but usually you have to be qualified in rapier before you can move up to cut and thrust.
Yep.
Though they kind of see cut and thrust as the less advanced, which is the weirdest thing in my mind.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because they do allow percussive. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
So I think that might have had an influence on the guy. He actually said, quote unquote, you know, I'm certified in cut and thrust, so I know how to take a hit, and that one was a little hard. And I'm like, you're certified in cut and thrust, so you know how to take a hit?
That's a peculiar statement.
Well, I thought about it. It stuck in my head. Like that was his like prerequisite for proving that I hit him too hard. Like he's the specialist. But it was just like maybe the SCA is used to softer hits because they start in the rapier, they start in the pokey, and we just start straight up in longsword for the most part, and just whack.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, I heard, ooh, we've got 2 viewers. Hey! Shout out to the 2 of you. Hey-o. Don't forget, if you have questions for us, post it in the live chat. I think I activated chat here, so we'll be able to see it pop up on the screen here. I know you can barely see us. But...
I won't, because I'm not looking at the screen.
Okay, safety first. You know, another thing they said at that tournament was, quote unquote, I'm going to try to imitate the voices as best I can. You know, the SCA is so much more advanced than HEMA and rapier.
Wow, what a voice, first of all.
Yeah, first of all, it's I'm trying to do my standard SCA voice. Nothing against the SCA is what they are, and they are awesome. Coming at it, comparing the SCA to HEMA from a HEMA perspective, of course, you're going to have a negative view, and probably this guy viewing HEMA from the SCA perspective, of course, probably is going to have a negative view. I wanted to ask him why he thought that way, and what his...
Like, I know from my local group when I started, I did a rapier, but I got a response and...
Hola, amigo.
Hello.
Yes, see, I told you, I've got a lot of followers from Mexico for my Aztec stuff. Shout out north.
We probably don't have any snow where you are, but
we're buried in snow. You can kind of see it passing Ray right there.
Yeah. It's actually it's a cool thing. Like, you probably, I don't know if you know or not, but like it actually makes it lighter. You can see better during night.
Yeah.
When there's snow outside, it's really cool.
The little light kind of gives this blue glow. It's nice. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Oh yeah, but the comment was basically like, it just depends. But of course, you know, he said, thank you for being respectful and giving a comment, as opposed to being a HEMA douche going on saying the SCA sucks and all that stuff. And I'm like, that's probably how most of them view HEMA is. They probably view him as being kind of jockish and kind of type of people, you know.
I never thought I would be considered a jock in any way.
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly. That's what I feel like when I went to Renfest for the first time. I'm like, it's the closest I've ever felt to being a jock. Because everyone is all dressed up in like leather armor and everything, and like wearing all this like crazy fancy stuff that looked awesome. And I'm like, this is the closest I felt to being a jock.
I go to Renfest. To William, really quick. #1 question I get asked: when is the Aztec book coming out? And the answer is, hold your horses. I promise it's coming out. I love it. I love it. I really do. I actually have the rough draft of a few chapters written out. And I want to make sure those chapters are the way I want them to before I continue with the rest of the book in that manner.
Pictures up with it too, or just kind of historical images?
I am a history guy. The book is going to be source-based, which would be essentially the codices, or codexes if you're American, that are the visual depictions of Aztec fighters, and that will be supplemented with the conquistador accounts, namely Bernal Diaz, and I think Cortez mentions a few details as well.
Really? Cortez himself.
Yeah, and those are 2 of the main ones that are going to be. Maybe I can exchange you some Mayan boxing. Hey man, send me some deets on that. I'd love to learn it. But it's going to be pictorial, and we're going to interpret the primary sources. There is, if you really get into the deep scholarly of it, scholasticism. It's been a long day at work.
And it's cold out. Yeah. My jaw's to warm up.
Yeah, freezing jaw. They argue that the codices were written decades after the fact and aren't true to the style. And I'll cover that as well. There's a lot of kind of supplemental chapters, like how influenced by Spanish martial arts is the Aztec interpretation in these codices. You know, you get depth to it, and yeah, it would be cool. Speaking of that, you did mention earlier, we're back to our SCA talk.
Yes.
I promise we'll get to Saber stuff soon. Back to the SCA talk, you said you asked how many people in the SCA actually study from historic manuals, and the answer is not many. But
yeah, with the group I was with Mushtaq, who was the main guy, he had studied Estreza and he was teaching us Capoferro. He was really the only one, other than me and Aaron, who actually studied the sources ourselves. Pretty much everyone else just learned from Mushtaq at the beginning. We learned a couple basic techniques, and then we just go to sparring for the rest of the time. I think that's pretty unique.
Yeah. And you know what is neat? Out of all the manuals that they could be learning from, Destreza is like the most popular within the FCA.
Yeah.
Which is cool because Destreza is underrepresented in HEMA in my mind.
Oh yeah, but it's so... Destreza is a mixed bag for me because it's like, I don't study it, so... but it's so just simple and effective and so cool in that they use geometry and, you know, just science for sword fighting, and it's just so dang effective. And I'm like, gosh dang it, like I try all this other stuff I know, and it just doesn't work as well. I'm like, yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's like I don't want to, like, because it's just so good.
You know, it's neat. That reminds me that Destreza is oh man, we are like in the dark. Oh, because there's no cars coming the other way. Okay. Destreza is the kind of the noble version of Spanish fencing.
Right.
But I'm very interested in the common Spanish fencing, which I don't know.
Too bad Aaron's not watching.
Yeah, I know.
He can tell us.
Figueredo, I probably pronounced that wrong, and there's another one they're more common in Montante, and they're partially translated. But they're the ones I really want to get into. If this summer, if I find the time to like improve my own techniques, that's what I want to learn. I want to learn Spanish common longsword fencing and the theory behind it. That'd be awesome.
You know, a funny transition potentially. I don't know if you saw those videos on the Facebook on the military Saber page, but there is Destreza Saber.
Really?
That's a thing.
Oh my god.
I saw a video showing all the basic parries from it. It's mostly similar. The footwork is it looks like Destreza. I mean, it's very relaxed and not overly done in any way. But yeah, apparently there are books on 19th century Spanish Saber as Destreza.
Shoot, that's cool. I didn't realize that.
It's really neat. I tell you, from what I saw at least, you know, I just saw like a 3-minute video, you know, walking through it.
Speaking of Saber, this is a perfect transition
exactly,
to what this actually should be. We had a few questions that were asked, and those of you who are watching, all 5 of you, hey, hi guys.
Hey.
If you have questions that you want to ask us too, feel free to include that in the chat. We had some pre-game questions that we were going to ask, that people asked to us, like, hey, you should include this in your discussion. One of them is, how did you get started? Why Saber? Why Saber? Out of all the weapons, what is Saber to you? Oh, geez, hold on. Hey, loved your video about the Kveton Saber. Oh, how about both of those sabers? How do both those sabers compare to the Hanwei Hutton? Haha!
Hey, I was the cameraman for that.
Yeah, actually, it was your...
Yeah, actually, I've never been on a live stream before, so I don't know how this works.
Oh, we have to go through satellite and all that stuff. Hey, we're back. Hey, we're back. Okay. Yeah, your Kveton, my VB. The Hanwei Hutton is the entry-level saber. You probably saw, I've got 2 videos about the Hanwei Hutton, and I praised it, and I loved it. And then I had another video, my reveal for the Arnold Fencing Classic, where I revealed also that my Hanwei Hutton broke. So Hanwei as a whole has a bad reputation for improper tempering. So they break pretty easily. These 2 sabers, you saw that the Kveton was longer than my VB. Both of those sabers were longer than the Hanwei Hutton. The Hanwei Hutton is also very light. You know, you remembered it. I mean,
I do remember it. Oh yeah.
It's light out of the box because the handle is horrible. And then I'm gonna open this so I can read that later. And I replaced the handle with a heavy Civil War handle saber, which kind of worked. Oh, you're illuminated from this screen. Let me see. Oh, it's William again. Would you like to do an interview sometime? Would you like to organize? Oh, historical African HEMA, guys. I would love to. I would absolutely love to. I've wanted to do videos on HEMA, but I don't feel like I know enough about it to justify it. But yes, 100%.
As far as underrepresented, you know.
Yeah, really underrepresented martial arts there. So here's what you do. If you need to get a hold of me, oh, that's awesome, cool. Will, I'm in the Facebook page, but if you want to send me a message about it, like the Poor Historian page on Facebook and send me a message that way. Cool. I'll keep an eye open for it. And yes, I would absolutely love to. No, funny about that, HEMA.
Yeah.
How many consonants have A in the name?
Right.
Like, forget historical American martial arts or Australian or Asian.
Yeah.
Or Antarctic.
I mean, I guess I don't know any martial arts from Antarctica, but
we'll find them, damn it.
Eskimo fighting, I guess. I don't know. Couldn't think of the word.
Actually, I did look into that, the weapons of the Inuit. I'm such a nerd. I do stuff like that. But yeah, they had a few.
Well, it makes it really easy to become the leading researcher and stuff like that.
Oh, police.
Oh.
Is he getting us? Nope, you got someone else. If the lights are on, that means we're safe.
Yes,
and
sir.
We're not driving an armory full of swords in here, officer.
No, sir. Completely legal. I mean, I haven't checked, but completely legal.
Final thought on the Hanwei Hutton. It's on Prime because it doesn't promote proper weight distribution, and it's kind of, you know, it's got problems. If you want to represent yourself well in the Saber community, don't say you fight with the Hanwei Hutton. Say you fight with something better. Okay, so how did you get into Saber?
How I got into Saber?
Or why Saber for you?
Why Saber?
We asked that a while ago. We got way sidetracked.
I mean, you know, it's one of those things where, like, getting into HEMA in general wasn't one specific moment. It was more of just over time. I kind of get introduced to little bits and pieces, and over time, you know, I tried things out, and I looked into different sources. And, you know, I think to me, like, what really got me into Saber specifically is probably Alfred Hutton's Cold Steel.
Yeah.
That's really because I just love Alfred Hutton as a person, because basically in my mind he's, may sound controversial, but he's kind of the first.
Showing off the book. I brought the book.
Oh yeah, that's the book. It's awesome. It's just an awesome book, but also Alfred Hutton. He's basically doing HEMA in a sense, because even in Cold Steel, he's teaching dagger from Marazzo.
Yeah.
And he's he's talking about English backsword from ages past, and he's saying that people don't practice swordsmanship. And he's basically talking about the way that we talk about swordsmanship is kind of what he's saying.
Yeah.
And it's just super cool that Victorian is not full of a lot of romanticized, you know, nonsense. Which, you know, I don't want to make him sound like they're stupid, but a lot of times they can, you know, assume a lot of things that we know now are not true. And he's actually really reasonable, and it's awesome.
Yeah. I was actually I'm teaching a class on Alfred Hutton in a week. And yeah, I was actually going to mention that too, and you're going to help me teach it too.
I'm excited.
So it was, even looking at Alfred Hutton biography, which very simply put is how different eras of history interpreted history. And it's like, I always make the joke, historians ran out of things to research, so they started researching themselves. So that's historiography, and Alfred Hutton is a prime example of that. Because he's something from history, researching something from history.
He's a good one too.
Oh yeah, a very, very good read. And a cool dude. I mean, like, talk about soldier of fortune. Like, he's done so much stuff.
You know, because I don't know a lot about his life, but I know about that first instance in his military career where he, established himself, where he fought one of his officers. You heard about that?
No.
Well, he was. I think he wasn't like actively deployed yet, but he was in training, and basically he was talking himself up or something along those lines, but he ended up fighting one of his officers. he had to practice Saber, and he fought him against his officer using bayonet. He beat him, and his officer was like, that doesn't count, and they switched weapons, and then he beat him again. So basically, I mean, that's quite an awesome story, a way to basically show yourself that you know what you're doing. And he studied under Angelo school, I believe, after that, because basically, right from the get-go, he's showing himself that he knew how to fight sword fighting.
Yeah.
He definitely trained from a young age. He had always practiced swordsmanship, and man, what a cool guy. Not just a knowledge show, that's what's important to me. He's very skilled, but he cares about learning.
Yeah. Oh, he like you said, he's right to the point.
Yes.
He doesn't do that blah 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 blah, which I had to muck through when I was teaching both the Civil War Saber and the Civil War Bayonet class. It's just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And I was part of a group interpreting an even earlier militia manual too, which was just as much, just with fewer pictures. And it was just like, why did I sign up for this?
Yeah. What do you think of like Cold Steel in general, the whole book?
To be honest, I love it. We as modern HEMAists look at him as kind of like the Saber version of Mayer, of Johann Mayer, or however you want to say he pronounce his name.
Mayer,
which is cool. He kind of accumulates a lot of knowledge and is kind of the final and most detailed manual, more or less, that there is. But because of that, I almost don't feel like he is I personally love the history side, where I love crossover episodes, as I call it. That's why I like the conquest of the Aztecs. That's why I like the Age of Exploration.
Yeah,
it's culture v culture. And
it's like fantasy in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And Hutton, while he is English, I don't necessarily see him as traditionally English.
Interesting.
And so like he's kind of everything, best of everything.
He really does.
And
absolutely.
And that's kind of like the representation of the sportification of sword fighting in my mind, a historical sense of it. Yeah. I might be getting a little deep, but so I'm gonna.
No, I don't think so. Keep going with it.
Whereas Mayer, his kind of longsword counterpart, is doing it specifically as a part of Germanic culture, and doing it to maintain the tradition. Hutton is doing it to be the best. He's like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it if you want to win.
Yeah.
And more power to. And in HEMA, there's lots of people who do that.
Yeah.
What sources did you work from for teaching Civil War Saber Bayonet? That's kind of cool. Yeah. You were in that class too.
I was.
Oh boy, let me see if I can remember them. So the problem is with teaching Civil War classes. First of all, that is how I got into Saber. I love Civil War history. In fact, the Civil War is how I got into history in the first place. Technically, it was video games, Age of Empires. Right. We all start somewhere. But long story short, I want to tell how I got into history because it's relevant. I got into video games, specifically history video games. Then I got into the modding community where you mod the files to change. So I eventually linked up with a group who modded the game Age of Empires 3, which is a colonial American game, into a Civil War game, which is cool.
That's pretty cool.
And I eventually became the only one working on it. It's actually called Age of Rebellion, if anyone is curious enough to go out and find pictures, or the beta, which I finally released.
Oh, you actually modded it? You made the mod yourself?
Yeah, well, eventually it was all me. No one shared their files. There were a couple people who made different units. Yeah. So I got into it and I was like, wow, I know Age of Empires 3 does not have actual battlefield looks to it. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll change that up. And I realized I didn't know how actual Civil War battles were fought. I didn't know how they looked. How can I do that? Well, Civil War reenacting. Got into Civil War reenacting, got into the education aspect of it, talking to the public, realized I wanted that with my life, did a history education degree thing, and here I am managing apartments. So, what was I gonna say? Bear with me there, I appreciate it. So Civil War Saber, it's a pain because military manuals only teach enough to go over the basics, to make the soldiers feel comfortable with a sword, or in melee combat. Yep. So I had to pepper in pieces here and there. It was Stevens. I kind of did two main manuals for Saber, and I sprinkled in a few more. One for Union, one for Confederate. Union guy was Stevens. He was the swordsmanship professor at one of the... And then his Confederate counterpart was I'm not going to talk about it until we get our connection. It says live, but it has the loading circle. Can you guys hear me? Those of you who are watching? Like, can you see or hear me?
Yeah, I was wondering if they could even see us.
Yeah, because I know I did this once before with the Civil War reenactment. The video cut out, but the audio is still there, which ruined the video, ruined the whole point of it.
Oh, that's why. That's right.
We've got this little swirly thing on the screen here.
It's showing the swirly.
But it also says we're live in the corner, so I don't know what that is.
It's not the red ring of death, but it's still pretty good.
Yes, now. Yeah, you're fine, but it stutters. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
All right, so
Swirly.
manuals. Pardigon, Pardigon. He taught his manuals because he traveled to the Confederate camps, saw the officers, and the officers all said, "I have this sword. The army gave me this sword. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with it. Can you help me?" And he traveled around, and he was like, he eventually said, "You know what? Let's write a book." And he has some of the best images in his book.
Was that written during the war?
Written during the war. I mean, it was during the Confederate States. He wrote it. It was published in Richmond. Yeah, and he has some more advanced techniques. So I kind of did Stevens as the basics and Pardigon as the advanced techniques as the class progressed. And then Bayonet McClellan. He had two sections of his book. He had the basics, like for the soldiers who kind of needed to feel good and comfortable, and then he had the advanced stuff, which was about sparring with the plastron and the mask and all that stuff. And then I sprinkled in a bit more of someone, and Casey or Carey. It's either Casey or Carey. One of those did infantry, one of those did bayonet. And they were the one who did unique style stuff. I think one of them took it from France and the rest took it from England. So they had a whole different world that they were teaching.
Yeah.
That was fun. I really want to dive into bayonet more. I did see that Black Fencer released an 1816 bayonet trainer.
Sure did.
I'm excited. I actually have 2 on order for that, so I'm looking forward to that. I actually want to do, after I finish the Aztec stuff, I want to do a Civil War combat series. I also want to do a Viking combat series, and I want to do this and this and this and this.
There's so much. HEMA is just so like spread out, and gosh dang, there's too much.
Yeah.
Too much for one lifetime.
Yeah. Okay, so another question that we were asked beforehand was, with sabers, do you like it curved or straight? Ha ha ha. And how much curve is too much?
Who asked that?
That was Rob.
Rob, okay.
Rob did that one. I like that question. So what are your thoughts on the curvature of the saber?
Well, and it's a funny thing because, like, for us to talk about it now, this was a huge argument in the 1800s.
Really?
Like, certainly in the military. Like, basically, I mean, cut, not necessarily completely like straight versus curved, but definitely cut versus thrust.
Yes.
There was a huge debate in the military, like, what's better? And they argued and talked about it all the time. And of course, you can't really come to one consensus.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually they kind of came to the idea that it's better to thrust than cut. But, you know, for me personally, it just depends on how I'm fighting. If I'm fighting more like kind of a fluid, like, I would say, you could say Polish to make it sound cooler, but kind of like a Dusek or like earlier, you know, Renaissance type of fighting with a one-handed sword, I would want to curve. But if I'm fighting more proper, like tutorial,
I feel like Italian is very similar. Yeah, I assume it was about HEMA. Okay, so a while ago, Matt Easton, we all know him. I'm sure most of us have seen it. It was comparing Olympic fencing to HEMA, and he said, long story short, a lot of people got into fencing because they wanted to do swordsmanship. We got no viewers right now. What happened? We're live. Come back.
Bye, Dan.
Yeah. And William and all those other cool friends and our friend in Mexico.
Yeah, that's how it is. Whenever I watch the live stream, I'm on for like a couple minutes, and then I'm off.
Yeah.
It's very rare I'll stick around for a live stream that long.
That's a good point.
But it's recorded, right?
Yeah, it's recorded. We'll watch the whole thing afterwards. What was I saying?
About sportification.
Sportification. Oh yeah.
Fencing.
The people who got into Olympic fencing wanted to get into it for sword fighting. They realized it wasn't sword fighting, it was poking and gentle taps and electricity and all that. And so then they come into HEMA because that's more appropriate for sword fighting. And I liked that video. And then later on, there were other videos I saw around YouTube that were kind of promoting it. And I actually got into a drunken argument with I don't know if I want to say it. I don't want. Never mind. I'm not going to say it.
You mentioned this before, right?
I've mentioned it before.
Yeah.
You've heard the story.
Yeah.
So one of the popular YouTube guys moved to Michigan, and we just happened to be at the same event, and we talked about how, hey, we got a viewer back. Good, we are live. We talked about where does historical replica fall into HEMA, and I obviously fell into, yeah, it should belong. We're recreating the sport. Why don't we recreate the the stuff, the items as well. We do it with some of our fetters, and Sabers is a lot too. And their argument, which was completely understandable, was that historical garb is not safe enough. And if we really want HEMA to progress to the wonderful level that is now French lightsaber fighting, apparently.
Oh God.
And there was much more depth. And I think in terms of sportification, if we want HEMA to grow, it needs to be sportified a bit. We need to break out of this kind of clubs and regional stuff, which is doing fine for what we are, but we're not recognized outside of the HEMA community often. You know, they think of LARP.
Yeah, that's true.
Or occasionally the SCA, like, oh, I do sword fighting. Oh, like the SCA? Kinda?
Well, if they know what the SCA is, at least you can explain to them at that point.
Yeah, the differences.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on sportification?
I love this topic. This is one of the things I love to talk about as martial art, because that's the goal in general. So like, I took a beginning sport fencing class in Grand Rapids to kind of understand and practice it a little bit. You know, we're never going to present a true life or death. Totally get. I think we should. Universal system might be good. But having the freedom to kind of try new things and do different point systems and try new weapons, it's getting closer. And I want to try to stay away from that, to be honest.
Yeah.
If we can help it. But I can talk about that for a while.
It's kind of a similar thing to what I saw in reenacting. By most, always an outlier. Most professional historians don't really see historical reenacting as a legitimate anything other than like fun kind of thing.
You think, really?
Yeah, because most of the people do their research independently, and most of them aren't qualified. It's about reconstructing. It's not about learning new things, more or less, except you get into the world of experimental archaeology, which I could do a whole I'm not going to do that. But it's a similar path, because how do you get reenacting to be recognized as, as the understanding it deserves? And same with HEMA. How do you get HEMA to be recognized, as much as it deserves?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a weird give take.
Yeah.
Like, you have to sacrifice some things to get, recognized.
Oh yeah. And I'm at the end of the day, there's no one right answer of what HEMA is going to be, but it has just so much potential. Is the awesome thing about it, though.
It does.
So
it's huge potential. Oh my God. Yeah. Whew. Okay, so another talk, another Saber question was what is your favorite type of garb?
Oh, you go first.
All right, I'll go first. I'm obviously the bar guard, and I was just so happy when I saw that there was a synthetic one. It's a line for that. Still waiting on it, and that's cavalry style bar guard, Civil War style, all that stuff. I only like that specifically for the history aspect of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The DD I'm going to be fighting with is a cup guard, and I feel really
and most of your hand is only on one side anyways.
Yeah. But with the cup hilt, you're not walking around with it. It's not part of a uniform. It's equal on both sides. And I like kind of blocking with the strong, with the forte of the blade, which protects my hand. It's dangerous to put your hand out there, so cup hilt covers it up more. So I think casually I'd like the bar guard, but combat I like the cup. I do not like the single,
guard.
What is with HEMA liking the 1796 Saber? What the heck?
I love it, but I don't know why that specifically stands out to so much people.
It's considered the best Saber.
Oh, really? Have people said that?
People said that. I'm like, why?
Oh.
There's...
people who used it really liked it in Napoleonic Wars, but the best Saber? That's a weird thing to say.
That one in particular... Dang,
I love it. I think it's awesome. But
Cool.
I would never say like this is the best saber. You know, that's well to say any sword. When you say cup hill,
I'm thinking rapier.
I think of the like Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Have you thought about it?
I have, and you know, it's like I can't think of one specific answer to like my favorite. But yeah, practical guard specifically, I would say the British, actually the 1911, I think the World War One cavalry. So I think that bull guard looks the coolest to me.
Okay.
But as far as like, as far as practicality, but as far as like overall bar guards, I've just seen some really beautiful Polish sabers, some antiques.
Bull guards on the.
Oh no, not bull guards. I mean the
bar guard. The knuckle bow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've just seen some absolutely beautiful, amazing looking antiques, and there's one particular I can't think of the name of it because I know there's a name of like the catalog number.
Okay.
But it's like it's so intricate and beautiful, and as far as like looks, that has to be my one. It's just a nice, really simple but like elegant D guard.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't say one right answer for sure. I thought about it a lot, and I can't come to one simple conclusion.
You know, that does bring up a point. We haven't even talked much about Polish sabers right now.
No.
Which is probably a big topic in the
that's reconstructive archaeology.
Yeah,
itself,
it is.
you
And
know?
there's only that one book, which it's so expensive. I haven't bought it yet. Yeah.
I have it if you want to read it.
Yes, please.
I'll tell you though. As far overall, most of the book, more than anything, covers basic fencing principles. Like it explains measure, and it explains tempo, and it explains like inside outside guard. Not a lot of like new interesting stuff. The best part about it to me, hands down, was the history part, because he talks about the Polish Commonwealth and some stories from a guy, I forget, his name is Jan, of course, Jan something, and he has some really cool stories with that. But there's not HEMA-wise, there's not a lot of unique stuff that he presents, in my opinion.
Okay, no, and that makes sense because there's not much going on. Like
Exactly.
with my reenactment group, we've got a Polish impression coming up this summer, so I've been doing a ton of research on Polish hussars and Polish hajduk, and trying to get as many images as we can, contemporary images. And you want to know how many images there are showing sabers or sables in combat? Like none. Like there's nothing to go on.
Yeah. No, exactly. So that's why I actually appreciate that he didn't like just start making up a bunch of crap saying this is, because he even actually is a lot of the techniques he mentions, he actually takes from like Meyer Stosak and like people, basically non-Polish sources.
Yeah.
And even Giganti and stuff for fabrics, because that's all we have.
Yeah.
Pretty much. As far as concrete sources go.
Oh, is that the modern Polish saber one? It's like late 1700s?
Well, what?
Like Gigantes?
Oh, no, Giganti's an Italian master.
Oh.
Yeah. And actually, so in Giganti, I think is the one where he shows how to fight against someone who uses a cutting sword, and the image he shows kind of looks like it might be a Polish person. So that's again, it's like much the best we got. And then the other Polish person uses is a source, but of course that doesn't represent probably
16th century and 17th century that everyone really likes.
Yeah, but to me, I want to learn more about that time in Poland, Lithuania as a Commonwealth during that time, because it just sounds so fascinating.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Maybe just because there's so much mystery to it, but it just sounds, I mean, the whole Schlachte deal and that all these nobles, like such a large population basically being nobles and having all this autonomy.
Yeah.
And being basically do whatever they want. And the king can't even really do much about it. So all these, it just sounds so fascinating, but there's not much information I can find about it. Certainly not online.
Yeah. I did research too, but all my knowledge is being overwritten by all the Viking stuff I did for last weekend. So it's like, oh, I gotta remember this.
Right.
There's a name for the Polish nobles, and the name for the like aggressive agricultural system they had. I can't remember. But that brings up a good point. Talking about things like Polish combat, Viking combat, my Aztec combat.
Yeah.
You know, hot topic right here is going to cause some debate. Is that HEMA?
It is a good question.
That is, and I might roll some eyes or whatever. You know, should we? I don't know if I should answer. I don't want my reputation to be here. But to be honest, I would say no. I would say that's why I like calling it Western martial arts or historical martial arts. But historical European martial arts was founded specifically on learning from the manuals, learning from these already written out manuals. Right. So Western martial arts doesn't necessarily have the historical in it. Yeah. So it can be interpretive. Right. Do I like that? No. I mean, I think that all this stuff should have history in it. And that's why when I write my Aztec manual, you know, I'm doing it source-based, and why I get so angry when I see everyone using the Macana, the Macohuit, two-handed. It's like, show me your proof. Show me your evidence. You're looking at a weapon, and you're going, I think I know how this weapon is fought with, and you're fighting with it based on your own... It's nothing.
I feel you, man. I get really bugged by that kind of stuff, too. It's like, you can get your own theories and stuff, but when you say this, when you try and make factual claims and you're not supporting with any evidence, yeah, I feel you there. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Oh boy, and that's why I say Viking combat and Polish combat, because those are the two big ones.
Yeah.
With it, and it's just all looking. It's funny because we've got, for Viking combat, you've got Herstwick, which has very. I like them. They're my favorite.
Yeah.
But they're very saga heavy.
Right.
And the sagas arguably are not good sources for Viking combat material or Viking knowledge in general. Most of them were written centuries after the Viking Age ended. So is that, I don't know, you know.
Right, yeah, it's because it's so vague. I mean, what can you take from it?
Yeah.
And I mean, the way I see it, at least one way I see it is, you know, even with the written sources or I-33, you know, they teach techniques, but the more important thing is that you learn principles. So in the way, like, for example, when we look at Viking sagas and the Icelandic sagas, and we see that they throw large things at each other, or they like break each other's weapons or whatever. Well, what principles do we learn from that? We can learn that they basically do anything to survive.
Yeah.
So although it may not teach specific techniques of how to use your sword against their shield and such, it kind of potentially, as long as it's somewhat accurate to what actually happened,
yeah,
and we don't even know that for sure, it might give an idea of what the fighting would have looked like, at least.
And it is cool. And you know what? Coming from the history space, it is source. It is the best we got. It's the best we got. So at least you're doing that. At least you're not just looking at the Viking shield saying, "Wow, this looks like a buckler," and trying to fight with it like a buckler, which a lot of people out there kind of do.
Yeah.
Do you have your phone on you? Because I want to make sure we're actually on the. We're not going to turn off or anything sometime soon.
Yes.
And I can do that if you want to not.
Yeah, go ahead.
But keep talking about Saber stuff while I do this. I'm not good at multitasking.
I can talk about Polish Saber.
All right, go ahead. Because you're the one who did like the only stuff on Polish Saber in Grand Rapids, as far as I know.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I suppose right. Well, the closest thing I've done, quotation marks, to Polish Saber is I put a thumb ring on my Saber.
Oh, I remember
Purple
that.
Heart.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the reconstructed part is, where like we try and practice with tools that kind of give us an idea of that are representative of what we're trying to practice with, and we can learn by using them, which ultimately is an important thing to remember, that, you know, at some point people who, before they had the treatises, people didn't have treatises, so they had to learn through using it. So at some point we're kind of starting over in a sense, and we may not come to the same conclusion, is the problem. But as far as practicing what I try to think is Polish Saber, I don't say it really is. Yeah, we got a while.
Yeah, 38 miles.
So comparing that to like Viking combat, so like just some of the stories of what I heard or read from Richard Marston's book is kind of reminiscent of saga stuff, in that they're extraordinary things that happen. They may not be like supernatural, but they're fights that happen, and we learn about things that they might have done, like they may have come across people using these different weapons, or maybe they, ambush people at night or whatever, and we're learning about larger, context of fighting, as opposed to just a one-on-one duel and they're fighting and using these techniques. And in that way we can learn, certainly, that Polish Saber, the main goal was not just to win, but to look really good while doing it. That seemed to be
Okay.
really important, from what I can tell at least. I mean, and that's why we definitely, like, for example, one of the things that definitely characterizes Polish Saber as far as the fighting goes is that the goal was not usually, if you can help it, to kill the opponent, because their law system was so absolutely strict. As this guy Jan What's-His-Face said, basically, it would basically be worse to kill someone and then face the criminal charges than to die. Is what he said.
My God.
In a fight. I mean, obviously,
I do remember it was very strict. Like,
it was super strict. And basically, even if you're like in a formal duel and you have all the rights to do it and stuff, their family can sue you and basically take everything from you for killing their relatives. So a lot more light cuts to the head so that can bleed and they don't die.
Oh.
And that's why apparently Richard Marston doesn't just, I think he takes it from a source somewhere, but that's why they favor cutting, because they saw thrusting as a more deadly way of killing someone, where you're more likely to kill them if you thrust them, and with cutting you can make it lighter and you can make them bleed and it looks good, but you don't kill them necessarily. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what I've read, at least from Richard Marston and some other sources. And as far as other than him, by the way, as far as authorities on it, Jan today,
Jan.
He's with the silk fencing team. I don't know if you've seen any of their videos. They don't go into a lot of detailed description, but they have some beautiful videos of them doing a lot of Molinades and describing how the fighting would have evolved over time into different sabers. And it's very fascinating, even though, again, it's not very technical, usually.
Okay.
And it's not a whole system, that's for sure.
I'm trying to remember some of the other things the questions that they asked. Can I use your phone to open up Facebook?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I think I turned your phone off. I think I need you to press home to unlock. Okay. Oh gosh! Oh no! I'm sorry. It's such a good phone.
I've had this case through a lot. It's I haven't weakened it yet, so if it gets dropped a couple times, I at least have a safeguard, I suppose.
Oh my God! What are these horrible pictures on your phone?
What?
No, nothing.
I'm like, what did I put up? The fact that I doubted myself is probably not a good sign.
The first thing I see when I open it up is Matt Easton flipping us off.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's not. Seen by 48. The post with our live video. We're going through a dead zone. Are we still here? I can't even tell. All right, we'll figure it out.
I see a little bit of lights moving.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll keep talking. It's not that.
My poor phone is like burning hot right now.
But I'm looking at Roworth, and he's really awesome. It's an awesome book as well. It's online for free.
Oh.
And I've learned a lot from him. I love compiling different sources. That actually brings me to a topic that I'd like to ask you about. What you think? What do you think as comparing people to study just like one or two sources for a weapon? They stick with just that. Like Nate only does longsword. He pretty much only learns from Lichtenauer.
Yeah.
As opposed to people who just take little bits and pieces from all different sources and they just compile it all together and try to make it the most effective system possible. It's kind of a broad topic, but like for Saber, like you can study Hutton, you can study Roworth, you can study Destreza apparently. You can look at Angelo, all those different things. You can compile it all together to make Saber, but it's obviously not going to be representative of any one era of fighting. Or you can, some people make it even broader than that, like I sometimes do, where you can look at Dustic fighting and kind of learn to apply that to Saber. What are your thoughts on that kind of idea?
This kind of links back to the sportification topic too.
Yeah.
So if people go into HEMA to fight to win, or manual specifically, then it's not real HEMA in my mind, unless there's real justification for it. So like, for example, you can study every single one of the Lichtenauer tradition manuals, and it's HEMA because you're studying a culture. You know, or you can study all the manuals from the 1600s, and you're doing HEMA because it. But if someone picks up I-33 and also Mayer's Sword and Buckler and kind of picks and chooses the best for that, I don't know. I guess that would be HEMA. But if someone just picks up a Sword and Buckler and just fights, so to analyze your question.
Yeah,
You said
it's a broad topic.
I guess if they pick and choose, it is still historical. They still have that foundation, you know, that historical foundation. But if they just pick up a weapon and start fighting with it, that's not HEMA.
Yeah, and that's also just not safe.
No, it's very unsafe. No.
That's LARP, basically.
When I first started, it's LARP. It's what it is.
At that point, basically, yeah.
And nothing against LARP. They've got their own techniques,
exactly.
their own fighting styles.
That's how I kind of got into HEMA. As in high school, I wanted to do LARP.
Yeah, I want to go. There's a big DAG group, which is different than LARP.
Yes.
In Grand Rapids, and I want to go to their events.
Kingdom of Northlands?
Kingdom of Northlands, yeah.
I went to a practice with them once.
Really?
That was something.
Cool.
Have you ever gone to the fight with them?
I fought against one individual. We kind of shared HEMA
Okay.
versus DAG fighting styles.
Yeah.
But not as a group. I mean, they've got big old stuff. I mean, he just brought his boffers. It didn't have any polars or any shields or. Yeah. What was your experience with it? What are your thoughts on it?
It was awesome.
Okay.
But certainly not my thing. That's what the main takeaway is. It's not my thing. So, you know, it's certainly fun, and in high school I would have loved it because it just, you know, because first of all, it's a large group, like relatively. Like there was probably about 20 people there, and we were having battles in Fuller Park. And we're all, you know, some people would just run up there and do their own thing, and some people would stick together, do kind of tactics. And it was just fun to just have those foam weapons and just not have to worry that much about safety. Like, well, as far as rules go, that's to me the big thing that took me away. Like, you don't have to wear protection, but because of that, no headshots, no hand shots, and you know, you can do grappling. Actually, they taught me so.
Oh.
But it's very, you know, it's different. But it's a lot of from those rules, your fighting changes a lot. Like for example, I had their buckler, quotation marks.
Buckler, because it's a big foamy thing.
Yeah, it's a center grip shield, and I use their sword. I borrowed stuff, and I kept holding it up to my head because that's just the way I know that you fight with a sword and shield. At least somewhat. I held it up somewhat. I didn't hold it out in front of me like a buckler, but when they basically told me specifically, like, don't do that, like put it up to your body and hold it there. And to me that was interesting because I'm like, huh. So I guess I reflected on it later. I'm like, well, that makes sense because when you don't have to protect your head, just use it to cover your body, I guess. I wanted to kind of use it more aggressively, but it kind of bothered me when they had this absolutist attitude where this is how you use it and this is the way it is. And also, as far as safety goes, it's funny, you know, they use foam weapons and stuff, but they teach some bad fighting mechanics. I'll tell you what, like, when they teach you to cut, they specifically basically told me to hyperextend my wrist to cut around their shield. It's basically, I'm like, and he's telling me to do it, and because I appreciate that he went out of his way to try and teach me the rules, but I'm thinking, like, that's just, first of all, dangerous.
Yeah.
To just, like, basically flick your sword around their shields and stuff, but also I'm like, that's just not martial, because then you're just tapping them with it. You're not actually, you know, trying to give them a fight-ending move. But overall, super fun, but not very martial.
Okay, that makes sense. But you know what? There's one thing that DAG and all that does have that I want to see in HEMA guided, and that is
group fighting.
Group fighting.
Yes, I
group
know.
Fighting.
I know.
Now this is different than, because what I saw at the SA event was their melees, which was, coming from a HEMA perspective,
okay.
I'll do that caveat there, laughable. It was laughable. It was just like, what am I looking at right now? It's a mess, unfun, just like, it must have been fun. It must have been fun for them.
Right.
You know, and that's fine, but like.
So is there ever one in two groups fighting against another group?
No, it's one group versus one group. I didn't see multiple groups. See what I'd like to do. Take that and what DAG can do, and all. DAG has the potential for this too, and I think some groups do it as well. Take that, fuse it with reenactment battles where they do similar to HEMA. I was actually having a discussion with this with Adam Franti, Lansing Longsword Guild. Great reference for Mayor, by the way. Awesome. Awesome. Oh my God. Mayor. I'm so used to pronouncing it incorrectly to differentiate it from Mayor.
You said you had it for like 10 years, probably.
Yeah. I'm notorious for mispronouncing things. You should see all the comments on my Aztec videos about it's pronounced Maquahuit. It's pronounced Maquahuitl. It's just like, oh my God.
It's not like language back then was as unified as it is today anyway. So, but anyways.
So Civil War reenacting and other military reenactings are similar to HEMA in that they take manuals that survived and they try to recreate the techniques, but their techniques do in DAG or SCA with group battles. Take what you can do in HEMA with individuals, give them all pikes because that's the best weapon in the world, and have legitimate pike battles. Like, how cool would that be? Where you have the captains organize, telling them how to outmaneuver each other. You go for the hits, and
that'd be lit.
That is a goal that is not worth going for in my mind, because very difficult to get to.
It is difficult, but I mean, especially as we get more people, you can just throw a bunch of movies around, just like peasants.
That's true. Well, when I was teaching the Sword Shenanigans class, the first Grand Rapids HEMA anything, like I announced the beginning of the Grand Rapids HEMA Society at that event.
Yeah.
I taught it.
First met you.
Yeah. Oh man, that was a while ago.
Yeah. When was that? Was it 2016?
It was St. Patrick's Day weekend. Jeez, it must have been 2016, it might have been 2015 or 14. In any case, I had a group of 30 people in my spear class, and I took the second half of the spear class to teach pike formations, and everyone loved it.
But they have little melees, basically. And it's really interesting because obviously, like, we don't practice that in HEMA, like fighting with other people, because pretty much everyone just kind of mostly looked like kind of separated into their own little duels, but it's a start.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. Potential.
Yeah, the potential. HEMA is a very individualized martial art.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. That's all they teach, yeah. Yeah. Whew. Our videos lasted, what are we at? 66 minutes.
Nice.
We got a 5-hour drive in front of us.
Still got time.
Oh my God. And as long as the Google Maps is going to tell us, and we're looking for the highway, Freeway 23, US 23, but I think we've got a good. Here, you want to open this up again?
Sure.
In the meantime, I'll talk about. Oh, never mind. You can talk about something.
Well, I don't know, like. I can talk about cut versus thrust and Saber.
That's a good topic.
Because I've heard a lot about it, but I've read most from direct sources from that book I shared a while ago. But British Sword Fighters, or Sword Fighters of the British Empire, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's an amazing book because
17 miles. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's a big book, by the way. But it's all like first and secondary sources, pretty much, of actual sword fighting, and you get desensitized with how many awesome accounts there are of sword fighting, and it's great. But they talk a lot in the 19th century about, like, should you make a sword that's good at cutting or thrusting, mainly because they came across certainly in India against people who used them. And basically the main point is that eventually they kind of arrived at the conclusion that, in Britain at least, that it's better to use the point. But they said that apparently they would say sometimes, and it's such a broad topic, it's hard to talk about, but the criticism of thrusting, of course, comes that when you stab someone, you have to get it out, especially if you're fighting a lot of people. You kind of need your sword for the next guy. Really hard and through, and you land a really good thrust, then a lot of times your sword is just useless because it's stuck in the other guy.
I get to talk about blood grooves. Dibs. Dibs on talking about blood grooves.
Go ahead.
Okay, so just hiccuped. Misconception, folks. Those grooves on the side of your blades. The incorrect. This is false, but it's widespread. The incorrect story is that they are blood grooves, and they are put on those swords so that as you stab someone, it creates suction because we're a big ball of water. And you let those grooves, the swordsman apparently put those grooves in there to let the blood out, which breaks the vacuum and lets you get air there to add stability, similar with minimal material, similar to an I-beam in construction.
Yeah.
The shape adds rigidity without adding weight or excess material.
And they're called fullers.
Witness me.
Yeah. Fullers are sexy. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
sexy fullers.
Got those triple fullered swords that are just
Yes.
like, oh my god. So cutting apparently is better because you don't lose your sword.
Right, but then also the criticism of cutting is that medically the British officers, a lot of them believe that cutting doesn't kill people that well, or at least it doesn't like wound them enough to actually end the fight.
Okay.
They thought they saw the thrust as more deadly, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's just going to depend on, as always, what sword are you using. Is the sword sharp? You know, if the sword isn't sharp, it's not going to cut anyway, so maybe that could have been a reason. I also blame, and also the fighter, at the end of the day. Like, can you land a good thrust and do you land good cuts? Do you have good edge alignment? You know, there are a number of accounts where they mentioned that, you know, they went into fighting just assuming, well, my sword is really sharp, just edge alignment. Like, I just hit him with a sword, I have to cut well with it. As far as people with practical experience in India favored cutting very much because they saw the Indians like lopping off heads and cutting people in half. Which, by the way, I don't know if you ever like have been doubtful of people like actually like cutting people in half or cutting their heads clean off. And I used to be doubtful, but there are so right from the get-go, there's people describing heads being cut clean off with a single cut that I cannot deny that just happened historically often, because there's just no way that all of these people are wrong or exaggerating. It just completely surprised me, I'll be honest. It's just so fascinating because I love learning about biology and stuff too. But yeah, fighting would have been horrible at least without armor, you know.
Yeah. Huh. That's kind of cool. You know what? That kind of harkens to Civil War stuff. I was bringing back to that. Cavalry sabers, for the most part, in the Civil War, were more heavily curved than infantry sabers. And given, for the most part, most of them were not ceremonial. They were there as a backup. You know, they didn't expect to use it that much, even though there are tons and tons of accounts of melee combat happening, especially with cavalry.
Yeah.
But the cavalry swords were more curved for the most part. The infantry swords were more straight for the most part, which is kind of cool, to be honest. And it's of cut versus thrust in Saber.
Oh yeah, exactly. And you see that outside of America too.
Oh yeah.
A lot of cavalry swords are, and I can definitely see how that makes sense though. Like on a horse, when you're charging past and hitting someone, you absolutely cannot afford to get your sword stuck in that person. Yeah. So it makes sense to use. Which, by the way, I can only imagine how powerful a cut from a cavalry charge. Hey, like I was saying, like on foot, they're just cutting each other and chopping each other's heads off. Oh my God! Can you imagine the weight? Like scientifically, the weight of the horse is powering your cut.
Yeah.
And your arm.
Like super powered. Like you don't even need to. You just need to hold it out there.
Basically, I know. Man. That's what I wonder. Like, because they talk about like how to basically move when you hit someone so that you don't break your arm or your wrist because you would hit with such force. Like, I don't know exactly how that would work. And actually, I jump all over this.
We're both doing it.
I have a question for you if you know about this.
Okay.
So, in the Napoleonic Wars, like the cuirassiers, whatever.
Curious, yeah.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
They're heavy cavalry swords that were the straight, super thick, thrusting swords.
Yeah.
But I've heard their charges described as being basically horse to horse, like a wall of horses charging at an enemy line. And I know that the main effect you want is them to run away, is them to spread out and not actually be there when you get to them. But what happens if they actually are there when you do the horses just run them over? How do you expect to actually stab someone when you're horse to horse and you're running straight at them? Like,
so one of the things wow, I don't think I've ever talked about problems with HEMA, and this is not a solvable problem. It is impossible to solve this. But no, fear.
Oh.
Fear, intimidation.
Yeah.
We're wearing all this armor, we're wearing all this protection. We know at the end of the day we're gonna smile and thank the fighter and all. We're not fighting for our life.
Exactly.
We're not, and those of you who are fighting for your life, who are live fighting with sharps, you're not very smart.
No, stop doing that.
Don't do that, please.
That will, I'm not afraid to say that as far as getting a reputation out there. Don't fight with sharps.
Don't fight with sharps. So I think the fear factor is really, really what's involved there, and that's why you.
It all sounds cool.
Yeah. You don't put them under the command of an inexperienced fighter or an inexperienced commander, because you want the commander to recognize the enemy. Are they line troops? Are they well drilled? Are they militia? Or are they mercenaries? What level of experience do they have? You are using a soldier type, the cuirassier, that has a reputation, like a you don't want to mess. Can I say fuck? You don't want to fuck with these people. Yeah, you don't want to fuck with these people. And just they know, every soldier knows them. They know what a cuirassier is. So if you have a well drilled infantry line, mercenaries, Jaegers, you know, trying to think of redcoats, you know, whatever you want to call them, they would not run with a cuirassier. What they might run from is if the cuirassier charge takes out all their, I will assume, I don't know Napoleonic. I know 23 is coming up in a couple miles, so if you want to log in. I mean, that's why Lancers, oh, it is open, sweet. That's why Lancers ran out of style. There were still Lancers around. There were Lancers in the Civil War, Lancers in World War I.
Korean War.
Yeah, Korean War.
Crimean.
Korean War.
Awesome.
Like, what are you doing here?
No.
Crimean War, yeah. So they were still there, but they were not the majority of the cavalry. If we were really worried about killing power with the charge, we'd arm them all with lances.
Right.
But I don't think the killing. I think it's the intimidation.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if they wanted to just kill them with a charge, they would probably just. Yeah. And that's again where we have to just kind of make our best guess.
Yeah.
You know, because they didn't write down exactly why, as far as we know. I mean, maybe they did somewhere, but I mean, you know,
there's.
Yeah, that's one of the most frustrating things about trying to figure out like martial art, history in general. Even when they give a reason for things, you can't always trust it.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, you know, like, let's say you want to learn about ancient Rome, and you read from historians of the time. Can you completely trust that they're accurate in describing the personality of someone? You know, or you know that this event happened exactly this way. You can't always trust them. Because they have these biases that they have reason. This like that?
Yeah.
Okay. They have reason to exaggerate.
Not 147. After that, it kind of is the same extra add-on. You'll see it. It makes sense.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
It's frustrating.
You're getting into the world of interpreting primary sources.
I know.
And I mentioned that earlier with the Aztec codices too. I mean, are they really worth it? I mean, are they primary or secondary? Just old secondary?
Yeah. At the end of the day, do you think, like, sticking to like Makana sources? I'd say Makana because it's easier.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But do you think we will be able to figure out accurately what that fighting looks like?
I I think that if any culture that we don't have records, that we would eventually discover records, it would be the Aztecs. Their military was so fused with their religion, which was their religion. This wasn't some passive, like, you know, Confucianism. It was their religion.
Oh, yeah. I just watched Apocalypto recently again.
All right, so 23 south is what you're aiming at.
All right.
I'm gonna make sure that we do this right. 23, keep right. Yep. All the way to the right. Yep, there it is.
There we are.
Cool. The problem is as the Spanish burned almost all their records. There's even an image in a codex showing them burning just piles of Aztec everything. And so I would not doubt that somewhere there was some written combat descriptor. I don't want to say manual, because, you know, it might not have been educational.
Yeah.
But it was very likely there, and they just burned it, especially because they didn't want, they dealt with a lot of rebellion, trying to, I hate saying the word pacify, but that's what they were.
They did, I mean,
yeah, to pacify millions of people with a well-established culture. They have to do that. They had to make very harsh things, and the natives had to deal, you know, they suffered for it.
Hey, just a quick side note.
Yeah.
With this video, are you going to be able to do a thing where, like, you play it really fast and put it together in like a minute?
I don't want to do that.
Oh. I just wondered if that was a thing you could do.
Like fast, high speed it?
Yeah.
I can download it and then put it in my editor and edit it to make it. I don't want to do that.
I mean, there's really not much we'd see anyways.
Yeah.
Because it's all dark.
That's quite. Oh, you want to see us just like? I think the first like 10 minutes before the sun went down. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I like the Aztecs. There's so much to go on. I think on the opposite side, I do not think we will ever find out how Vikings fought. I do not think formalized education was a thing. Before writing documents down was accepted, you know, especially by the Vikings. I think that will always remain interpreted. And that's why I kind of want to do the same thing that I did with my Aztecs, or am doing with the Aztecs, with the Vikings, because there is no pictorial interpretation. And that's how I teach my class. You signed up for the class, right?
I did.
Yeah. So that's how I'm going to teach my class next week. Not the Hutton class, the Viking class. It's going to be source-based. It's going to be pictorial evidence-based. As much Scandinavian stuff from the era as I can. And it's just... Last time I did it went well. It's just I only had 2 students. This time I've got like a dozen.
Oh, really?
No, it's not that way. It's got to be like, 9? It's a big class. People like Vikings. People really like Vikings. So, yeah. Man, I'm hungry. You see a restaurant?
I'm hungry too.
We should find a restaurant. That'll be a good stopping point for the video too.
Okay.
But until then, we can keep on HEMA-ing.
Yeah, I ate a Burger King breakfast burrito this morning, and then I think I just had coffee.
I've just been snacking on all the snacks I had in my desk. Various nuts and dried cranberries and lots and lots of white chocolate. Hot chocolate.
When you said you didn't have snacks, I was like, oh, I can bring some. I just completely forgot. We're going to get the last minute anyway.
That was okay. So I added up all the prices. You guys who are watching, you might have seen my earlier video where I laid out the prices of everything. It costs more than $1,000 for me. Don't tell my mom. It's more than $1,000 for me to fight in this damn tournament.
But you also include the SEA stuff too.
I did include the SEA stuff. That was minimal though. I mean, maybe a good, probably less than $100 out of $1,000. And
then also you included getting all the equipment as well.
Yeah, I include, so new equipment that I bought for this tournament was obviously the VB Fetter, the VB Saber, which was together was about $450. Then I also got a new Gorget, which was about 30 something. And for the SCA, which it turns out actually worked very well with my HEMA stuff, I got leather gloves that I use as my undergloves.
Oh, yeah.
That was another 30. Yeah. And then I bought the $12 tips too that had the metal built in. So that was 12. So we're up to like 500 something. So Yeah, I guess it's not that bad after that. But the point was, I'm trying to keep the cost down by bringing a bunch of like that are appetite suppressants that give me the energy I don't need to fill my stomach.
Yeah.
But I forgot. So
practice fasting.
Yeah.
No,
oh God, that gives me a headache. What was I gonna ask? Okay, do you have a culture that you want to see?
Can I get up here?
No, because I don't have the food I want.
Oh.
I have to be gluten free, so I can't.
Oh.
I can't do Subway, except occasionally. So.
Do they have anything gluten free McDonald's?
I can order burgers without a bun.
Oh.
But I'm not going to be ordering a foot long without bread. A $5 foot long.
Yeah, right. That would. I mean, there's unwitches at Jimmy John's. If you see at Jimmy John's, those are so good. Have you ever had an unwich?
No, I didn't know they had
it's,
that.
It's a sandwich, but it's lettuce instead of bread.
Oh shit! Yeah,
good.
I'd eat the crap out of that.
Delicious. It's
all
so
right.
good, and I don't really like bread anyways. So
yeah, usually with sandwiches, just big, puffy. There's a restaurant called Potbelly that I used to make fun of because it was like they put their sandwiches on extra thick hot dog buns, and I was like, oh, it's just mostly puffy bread. No, you know what I've been doing on my way to the classes, on my way to the HEMA classes? Because I come straight from work now. I don't go home. I don't have snacks or anything. I've been stopping at gas stations and just getting the the shitty, gross beef jerky sticks that are in the little like plastic, the gross ones that are just out there. You know, that use the tongs to get out.
Yeah.
Those are like now one of my top favorite foods. They're so good.
Right.
It's just like a stick of salt. Salt and meat flavor.
I used to get so excited when my parents brought those home. It's like, oh my God, it's like the best meat ever.
This is meat? Wow, let's eat this for dinner.
Yeah.
So I am not above that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think though, because you're saying like as far as the martial arts goes.
Yeah.
It
doesn't necessarily need to be martial arts, but like how it was done properly. I saw a video showing Japanese archers fighting in formation recently, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's what brought it up. That wasn't necessarily a martial art. They were just doing it.
Right, or like military warfare.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
I mean, mostly I just think of like, you know, parts of history that I just don't know much about, like the Italian wars, like the
Condottiere,
yeah, and like Anglo-Saxon England, like you know, people focus on the Vikings, the Scandinavians, but I think learning about how they fought would be really interesting. But pretty much everything I'd want to learn about is already out there. You know, as far as like Germanic fighting, there's obviously a lot about that. You know, we already talked about Polish Saber and. So much Italian stuff, though. There's really not much.
Yeah, my God.
I mean, I'd like to learn more about their actual military tactics, the grand strategy of it. I just, you know, just having the whole idea of like a bunch of autonomous states in Italy and all the armor, like full play, and like, but also guns are being introduced and all that stuff. The history is so interesting.
Yeah.
But I just don't know much about it.
The military revolution. I love it.
Yes, but I can't really think of any like. Yeah, I can't think of any equivalents like Polish Saber or Viking fighting or whatever. I just don't know much outside of Europe, to be honest.
I would love to see. How do I describe this?
Okay, this is gonna be really vague, isn't it?
I guess to simply put it, the pirate culture, combat.
Oh.
Like those guys. I mean, if anything, those guys are the epitome of like. Innovative. Like, so I would not doubt that they created some sort of technique or whatever tactic that is just like unrecorded, you know.
Yeah.
Because they had to do this stuff to survive because they were clearly outgunned and outskilled by professional militaries at the time, for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you know?
Cool.
Did you know that at any point in the Caribbean there were not more than like 3,000 pirates?
Really?
Yeah, I think no, I think it was less than that. I have to find that. I have to find the book that said that.
That's pretty funny.
It puts it in perspective. It's like these guys were the minority.
Yeah, it wasn't really that big of a deal.
But they're disassociated. Like they're all pirates, but they're not like a unified army of pirates. They're this guy here, and this guy here, and this guy here.
You know, actually, in that book I was reading, there are accounts of pirate fighting across Europe, across the world, but there's an account, or a couple accounts, of Edward Teach's death, of Blackbeard's death.
Okay.
Of them boarding from people who were leading the British, who boarded his ship and fought. So there's no technique stuff, but there is at least description of how horrible that fighting was. Like naval fighting, oh my god.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's horrible. It's disgusting. And I'm like, you think of just like people fighting on land being bad, but oh my god. Like almost every account I read from that book of naval fighting, like they talk about slipping on all the blood and bodies. And basically like, I just can't even picture it. But anyways.
You know, that brings back, quick segue.
Yes.
That brings back what we talked about before with fear and intimidation. I wonder if naval warfare was so bad because those guys knew they didn't have anywhere to run. They couldn't run. They had to fight.
That's what they say. They're like, they're on a ship and they're being boarded by pirates or they're fighting people, whatever. They're like, there's no other option. You can't run away. You have to fight, and you just put your whole body and soul into killing everyone around you that's not on your side. And it's...
Wow, I never thought about that before. That's a really cool interpretation.
Yeah, and that's what they say too. You don't even have to interpret it. That's the crazy thing, is they just say like, yeah, like it's you either kill everyone or you die or you get thrown off a ship, which is horrible too, or you get shot or whatever.
Woo!
But also going back actually to the culture thing, when I first got in high school, what I wanted to get into LARP and stuff.
We're taking 14 east in 1.5 miles.
Oh, okay.
So we turn left.
Okay. I would like to learn about Greek phalanx formations.
Oh my god! I didn't even think about that. Oh.
Yeah, that is what spear and shield, like the hoplon and the phalanx formation. That is the military history I first got into that really made me love fighting. It wasn't even swords, it was fucking spear and shield.
Yes.
And phalanx, and just the debate, overhand versus underhand.
A lot over the Viking weekend too.
Yeah.
Because I did a whole talk on Viking spear and shield.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that.
Yeah, it's so... And yeah, we don't really have any information. We have pictorial evidence, but the pictorial evidence shows both. So we can't say for sure. It's pretty even from what I can find, at least, from what I've heard people that have been looking at it for a long time. But like, you learn about who can learn about Thermopylae and not get vastly interested in the arms and armor of ancient Spartans.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh my god, that's such a cool battle. Do you have a favorite battle
in history?
Yeah.
Like ever?
Yeah.
I had one and I can't remember right now. You say it first.
Oh boy. I'm sure that with time, as I read more and more about all the different battles that there were, I'll pick a different one.
To me, there are battles that stick out, but I can't say. It's like swords. Like I can't think of one that's my absolute favorite over everything else. I can't think of anything.
I have two. One is Fredericksburg for the Civil War.
All right.
Just because it shows stupid tactics. The Union trying to climb up Mary's Heights, and it was Doubleday, I think, who was just too scared of making a big risk. So he just sent in one unit at a time up this heavily defended hill, and the Confederates were just like, here comes another group of 800 guys. We've got many thousand embedded at the top of this hill, and they just kept mowing them down. And it was just like, well, it's a horrible battle.
Yeah. I think decisive battles are more interesting for some reason.
Yeah, and it's funny, the Fredericksburg was so bloody for the Union that during Gettysburg, after Pickett's charge, the Union line chanted Fredericksburg, Fredericksburg, as in like revenge for Fredericksburg.
Oh wow.
You're taking cool locations, a cool landmark.
Yeah. That's a big building, man. That's long.
So La Noche Triste, the Conquistadors had weaseled their way into the middle of the Aztec city, captured the emperor, took over his palace, and made it their fortification in the middle of the city. La Noche Triste was they had made the mistake of they let the Aztecs have one of their ritual celebrations. And in the middle of the ritual celebration, they went, which was unarmed and peaceful, they went in and massacred everyone.
Oh.
So boy, I'm really abridging this story. But
Yeah.
the Aztecs got pissed, rebelled against their formerly, godly overlords from Spain, and it basically besieged them in the emperor's palace. And so they had to try a whole bunch of crazy techniques to try to get out. They tried using catapults, or at least I know they used catapults at some point in the conquest. It failed horribly. They tried, is the thing. They tried making mantlets, basically big wheeled boxes that they kind of rolled out on battle towers and stuff.
Right.
And it was just them trying to do this. But at the end of the day, they just grabbed all the gold they could and ran. And it was called La Noche Triste because they basically lost half their force. They gathered, and a lot of the horses and a lot of the men were weighed down with all the gold they were carrying, that they fell into the river because Tenochtitlan was on the causeways in the middle of the lake. They fell off the causeways, which are like bridges. It's such a metaphor in real life.
More than just a battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
It's a representation of human greed, etc., etc.
Wow,
so.
that is really cool. See, I like battles like that where it means something.
Yeah. So that's why I don't want to say it's a battle, because it wasn't like they were just trying to escape. They weren't trying to kill, but the Aztecs were
like a siege battle kind of thing.
I think it qualifies. That's why, yeah. But it's not called the Battle of.
Right.
Then coming back later, the Aztec or the conquistadors did do a legitimate battle of Tenochtitlan, the final invasion, where they created warships, European-style warships, carried them overland and put them in the Aztec lake.
Oh wow.
And just did European-style naval warfare against the Aztec canoes and stuff. And it's like, what is happening? That's why I love crossovers like that. Oh, it's so cool.
That is cool.
The Aztecs also captured a lot of the Spanish swords and attached them to the end of their spears to make these partisan. Oh, it's so cool.
We can't even imagine what it would be like. First of all, we don't completely understand Mayan culture or anything. Mayan. No, Aztec.
Yeah, or Mayan. Believe it or not, we don't know much about their culture either.
Right.
There's a McDonald's here if you want to go there.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right,
but,
sweet.
Just to be them and to see the conquistadors come and show them guns and armor and stuff, we can't even imagine what that would be like.
Oh my God,
I mean, they thought they were gods.
They thought they were gods, and that's what would happen if well, maybe not, because we are in a less fanatical culture than either of the other two.
And we have so much information where we could just fact check everything.
Yeah, we've got the concept of the scientific revolution, etc., so just.
But I read a book about Magellan's journey and him coming across.
Oh, that's such a cool one.
It is. There's so much cool stuff in that book, but him showing them cutting armor and protects and then they would cut pigs and
Turn right onto Washington Avenue, then turn left onto
oh, this is just. I gotta turn this off. I don't know. I was looking for the sign. I didn't see it. There's a Chili's, a Starbucks. I guess pick a direction.
Sure. Why not? Right's easy out. So.
I love how every off ramp in the U.S. is the same jumble of stores. Oh, there's a Dollar Tree. Oh, there's a Starbucks. It's everywhere is familiar. Oh man, is it Kroger?
What's Kroger?
Oh, I forgot you're not from the east side. It's like Family Fare. It's like Meijer.
Oh, I've heard of it before. But...
It's like Walmart for our non-Michigan.
Oh, there's McDonald's.
You see it? Oh my God. I'm so hungry.
Have you ever seen what's that movie? I forget I can't think of the name, but it's about Ray Kovac, the guy McDonald's. What's that been?
Yeah.
Stretch your legs a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, but it is and basically spread across the nation. He was a salesman, and he came across and basically exploded it. Oh yeah. And it's kind of a sad story, but one of the things he said is like, you know, all across America there is a church and an American flag, and I want the McDonald's M to be up there with them.
He did it. Oh, we should say goodbye to our viewers because we're gonna turn this off.
Oh yeah, it's still going.
Peace.
You can see our faces now.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do as many videos as I can of us fighting. I might even live stream the Saber fight. I will find out. Wish us luck, guys. See you.
Right.
Yeah.